We are now in peak hurricane season. So if we expand the view this morning, take a look at the big picture, folks. This is peak season, and you can definitely see there's really not much happening out there in the tropics. We've got these waves that come off of Africa, but there's just been a ton of shear out there. It's just been ripping these apart. Very unusual for this time of year during peak season to not see much of anything happening into the Caribbean as well as into the Gulf. So obviously that puts everything kind of high and dry as far as the tropics are concerned, at least for the next 7 to 10 days. And even across the US, we've had a couple of storms. This has been very active across the plains over the last couple of days, but even that area will be starting to settle down, especially over the next several days. But it's cooler this morning. We've had some, starting off the first week of September, it has been on the overall cooler side for a good part of the country. Where we're coming out of that now, this is kind of the last hurrah, if you will, the last kind of more pleasant morning, if you will, for a good part of the country, with widespread 60s and even 50s showing up for the deep south, and those 50s and 60s spread all the way to the north, and even some 40s highlighted across areas of the Dakotas into Minnesota and back into New England. But these temperatures are expecting to start to increase as high pressure starts to build in, and there is this dome of high pressure. So more or less we've got this trough that's going to be digging into the Pacific Northwest. They've been on the warmer side. Now they're going to start to turn cooler and actually wetter over the coming days as this ridge of high pressure starts to build further south, taking on more of a La Nina look that we kind of been talking about on this channel for the last several months. This high pressure is going to come back with a vengeance, and it's going to be really bringing the omega blocking pattern taking shape. That builds back into a lot of sinking air over at least a good part of the country and a lot of warmer temperatures. So as you expect, there's not much going to be happening on the severe weather front either. So it has been active over the last couple of days across the Panhandle, western Oklahoma, western Kansas, so those areas into western Nebraska. But even those areas will start to subside and start to die down as this ridge of high pressure will start to build into the coming days and likely expand as we head into the weekend and into next week. So if you look at the setup heading into Friday, there is some of the cooler anomalies. This is definitely not cold by any stretch of the imagination, but it's below average for what you would typically see this time of year across Oregon, California, those areas in Nevada, essentially into Utah. But it's the ridge of high pressure that likely starts to come back and build over the top and really swings across the central part of the U.S., elevating those temperatures well into the 90s, not just for those areas across the deep south, but even across the central plains. Even portions of the northern plains will be back into the 90s, especially by Friday. So you've got those pleasant light temperatures, widespread 70s and 80s, going to feel really nice out there across the western regions. Of course, the desert southwest continues to remain hot and dry, but it's the middle part of the country that has been on the somewhat cooler side will be starting to warm up in a big way as that high pressure really starts to bring in all that sinking air, and you get the south wind starting to come back. So you got widespread 90s across Mississippi, Louisiana, back into Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, even into Kansas, Missouri, Illinois. You go all the way up to Iowa, Nebraska, even South Dakota will be back into the 90s, heading into Friday. And those 80s sneak all the way into the Canadian border. And even for those areas across Tennessee, you're in the 90s. You'd have to get way up there across Indiana and Ohio to get back into the 80s. You get the idea. There's definitely plenty warmer anomalies on the way. And as you expect, with high pressure, you get a lot of sinking air and a lot of not activity on the map. You got a lot of white showing up. That's little to no rain over those next couple of days across where the high pressure will be likely to build. You still have the monsoonal flow that's still happening with the more active Pacific further south, and we're still going to get some of that monsoonal flow back into New Mexico and portions of Colorado. The change is the polar jet stream will start to become a little bit more active as we start to evolve into more of a out of the end zone neutral to more of the La Nina type setup heading into that fall months. And that's the look we're likely going to see, as we're going to be seeing some troughs coming back into the Pacific Northwest, likely the rain coming back as well. And then the subtropical jet stream further south will become a lot less active. Complements of this La Nina starting to build back into the equatorial Pacific. We went through this end zone neutral phase over the summer months. It's been a somewhat milder summer across the middle part of the country. Not everywhere, obviously, but now we're trending back into that weak La Nina. So that it's been a noticeable drop in those cooler temperatures out here since early part of July. And now that we've hit almost that 3-month criteria, I do in fact have the Climate Prediction Center putting us into that weak La Nina when they do update tomorrow in their outlook, because of the trend of these cooler anomalies out here. Basically, all that means is the subtropical jet stream is becoming a lot less active. So you'll start to get a lot of, storms love warm waters. When it's cool, you're not going to get those big time storms. So I do expect more of a trending to a drier overall type pattern, especially for the southern regions. And then, of course, the northern regions will start to become a little bit more active with that more active polar jet stream that's going to be coming across the Aleutian Islands. That should definitely bring the rains back into the Pacific Northwest and turn around those conditions as what you experienced over the last couple of months. But the trend is happening. Summer's not going to want to end, as that ridge of high pressure will start to build and just likely expand. So even the Climate Prediction Center is definitely on board with the middle part of the country really elevating those temperatures, not just over the coming days, but well into the weekend and even trending into next week. And if you even go beyond that, folks, plenty of warmer anomalies coming on the table as we get closer to that official fall, right? As we transition in the next 10 days, going into that official fall towards that 21st, 22nd time frame, it's still going to be, on the warmer anomaly sides with really not any pressing cold fronts, any drastic cold fronts are coming really anytime soon. And of course, the next 7 days has a lot of sinking air to it, folks. I mean, where the ridge of high pressure is and all that heat will likely build, you got all the sinking air. So there's plenty of states will likely be bone dry over at least the next 7 days. You've got the monsoonal flow continue to remain active, but the transition to an overall wetter pattern is likely going to be starting to take shape across Northern California, into Oregon, back into Washington, and the polar jet stream is definitely more evident across Idaho, Montana, those areas across the Dakotas will likely start to become a lot more active over the coming months. And yeah, folks, there's really not much happening. It's unusually quiet for this time of year. We got peak season. There's not much happening in the tropics. We've got a mega blocking pattern starting to come back for the good part of the country. That means a lot of sinking air, not much severe weather to talk about, a lot of warmer anomalies to talk about, and definitely as we trend towards that fall criteria, even on the ensemble guidances, yeah, this is that week beyond next week, going from the 17th through that 24th time frame. It's still plenty warm across a good part of the country as even we make that transition into the fall. And if we take you into the tropics and look at more of the extended range, so obviously we still have hurricane season, right? This is normally peak season. I mean, this is very unusual to not have anything out there into the Atlantic. We've had 6 named storms, so it's not like we haven't had anything, but there's not much happening over the next 7 to 10 days. And if you even look behind that, obviously we still have waves that will come off the main development region. But, the latest update, at least on the extended update, has, less than 20% trying to pop up back into the Gulf. and of course you get these little tropical waves are coming off, but nothing like really pressing happening, at least for the next 7 to 10 days. Maybe beyond that things will change, but in the short term it's pretty mild out there, and enjoy the quieter pattern, kind of how we have it. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after the storm.